What happens if somebody is the 10th man to a minyan, but arrives late? Should the Shaliach Tzibur wait for him to catch up in order to start Shemoneh Esrei? Not repeating the Shemoneh Esrei, but Shemoneh Esrei for everyone. This question, I'm a little embarrassed to admit, actually happened to me. Minyan started at 7:45. I thought it started at 8 o'clock, so I arrived late. So what would have been the right practice? Now, that gets to the question of what constitutes Tefillah B'Tzibur when you do the private Shemoneh Esrei, 10 men present. Is it enough just to have a majority or a distinct majority, 6 or 7 men davening, or do you need all 10? Many poskim say you need just 6 or 7. But Rav Moshe Feinstein disagrees, and he says you need all 10 men davening. Why? Because he says, look, when in halacha do we ever say a majority of a required number suffices? You have to eat a kazayas of matzah. Nobody ever says that the majority of the kazayas counts. So if you need a tefillah b'tzibur, why should just 6 or 7 men count? So based on that, the Shaliach Tzibur should wait in order to get tefillah b'tzibur. Okay, you could ask the trade-off between tircha d'tzibur and how much you want to be concerned with Rav Moshe Feinstein's position as opposed to the other poskim. That's always a balancing act. And if there's a clear psak in the shul, then obviously you follow that. However, there's a twist to this, which is Rav Moshe Feinstein in a different place rules that something counts as tefillah b'tzibur if I, let's say there's a minyan davening, and if I were to join when they were in the middle of Shemoneh Esrei, and it counts like I had a tefillah b'tzibur. Why? So Rav Moshe makes an interesting analogy. He says, look, everybody ends Shemoneh Esrei at different times, and it counts as tefillah b'tzibur. So if you start at different times, it could also work. Obviously, that's a very questionable analogy. If we all start, we're davening together, and the end doesn't redefine that. But that's his position. So an interesting question is, can you combine the two? Can you say that if this person starts in the middle, it's all 10 davening together? I think that's questionable even for Rav Moshe Feinstein, because it's one thing for me to join a minyan davening. It's another thing to constitute once we started without a minyan davening. What I would say is that even according to Rav Moshe Feinstein, there's a difference between the private Shemoneh Esrei in the tzibur and the repetition. Rav Soloveitchik has a very sharp term to clarify the difference. He says the private Shemoneh Esrei is tefillah b'tzibur, individuals praying in a tzibur. The repetition is the tefillah hatzibur. The tzibur as a corporate entity is praying through the Shaliach Tzibur. And if we see it as a corporate entity, it's possible to say that if even only 6 or 7 actually davened, that still constitutes a corporate entity. But in the actual private Shemoneh Esrei, you might need everybody davening to be a tefillah b'tzibur, which is Rav Moshe Feinstein's position.